So, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here with us this afternoon. Very happy to see all of you. We will be doing the Special Ed Paraprofessionals and Distance Learning Overview. My name is Sonia Neely Johnson. I'm the Director of Special Ed Secondary, and Lori Roberts is going to be doing a section of this presentation there she is, on some specific things around Chromebook and email. And we're going to be doing an overview. We're really going to ask that you kind of hold your questions until the end, and then we will go through and answer questions. This is a smaller group, so we may go through things a little faster. But there are some features on Zoom where you can raise your hand if there's something that comes up that you need to ask about, or you can put it in the chat as well. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and go to the next. Oh, wait, before we get started, I call them Zoom protocols. We want to make sure that we have our mics on mute if we're not speaking, so we don't have background noise, because we are recording this session. And once again, there are places where you can raise your hand. In the participants part, if you go to the participants, there's a place where you can raise your hand and we can acknowledge you. But once again, if you can hold your questions until the end, or you type them into the chat, and when we come to the question and answer part, we will get those questions at that time. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So next slide, Lori, thanks. Okay, so we are doing both of these trainings were today. We have elementary aids, and then we also have secondary, which is middle, high, transition, and really adult ed. And so I don't know if Ken or Rosalind are on this one. I think they were on the first one, but Ken is our transition coordinator and Rosalind Brown is the assistant principal for transition. And then Jody Kuick, who was in the last session, is the director of special education for CEC and mental health services. And then we have a director for elementary, who's Rachel Avanesian, and Christina Bowman is our coordinator for preschool. Next slide. So we're going to get practice using the chat, and I know some people came in and said, hey, where's the chat? So we're going to get more practice with that. So once again, welcome. And I want you to think about, what is one thing you are looking forward to learning more about this school year with online learning? And I want you to type that into the chat. So at this point right now, what is one thing you are looking forward to learning more about this school year with online learning? And you can go ahead and start typing that into the chat. Okay, I'm seeing how to work with multiple students. Good. More creativity. Good. How to engage kids with more of this new technology. How to help my students who are pushing in for mainstreaming. How to manage multiple subjects. Getting students to interact. Yes, that's ongoing, even in the brick and mortar. How to develop better strategies to engage our students. All of the different apps the teachers are using. I'm going to give a little bit more time. Getting better with using Google Classroom and using other online teacher resources. How to use Chromebook and working with students. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move ahead, but if there are other things that come to mind, ways to enhance communication, go ahead and put that in the chat. How to work breakout rooms, for sure. That's a good one. Okay, so, and that's good that you're thinking about what are the things that we need to learn. And one of our goals, the special ed department and the IT department, which Lori represents, is to figure out what our PD plan will look like for you. So it's good to hear what you want to learn more about. Okay, next slide. Those of you who are just entering, make sure you put your name and your school in the chat. So the first thing before we even get started, we really want you to know that we really value you and feel that you are an important part of the educational process for our students. You are an educator, and many times our students need your extra assistance because they have different levels of varying disabilities, so they do need your support. And so we really do value you as a person and what you can contribute. You're appreciated, you're professionals, and one of the things that we really wanted to make sure this year is that we gave you the tools so that you can participate effectively in our students' learning. And so Chromebooks were passed out last week, and we're going to be doing some more distribution if you don't have one. So as we go through this presentation, there will be a date in there where you can either set up an appointment to pick up one or go on a specific day at a specific time. And one of the things we really want you to know is that you can do this. We all can do this. This is all new for all of us. When we first got on this call, Lori and I have been in the district and actually working together for many years. And we were saying we didn't know we would be here, where technology is really in the forefront of how we're educating our students. And so we didn't think we would be here, but now we are. And we're very fortunate to have people like Lori and others who have always talked to us about this work and how important this work is. Okay, so you all get a gold star already. Thank you for being here. So the agenda is going to cover, and we've done kind of the introductions by you putting your name and school in the chat, but we're going to be focusing on the role of paraprofessional in distance learning. We're going to be talking about some resources and upcoming PDs. We're going to discuss online protocols and interacting with parents. And then at the end, we'll have an opportunity for questions, okay? And someone asked already, how are you signing in and out for this? You're signing in through the chat. So if you put your name and your school, that's how you're signing in for this session. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the role of the professional in distance learning. Next slide. So, job expectations. Your job expectation is to support distance learning by participating in the virtual instruction with your teachers and the students. And you will work with your teacher to find out what the specific schedule is for the students. You will work with individual and small groups on the virtual platform. Some of you are classroom aides, some of you are in one-to-ones. And even if you're a one-to-one, sometimes you may even work with the small group, depending on what your teacher, how they set up their small group instruction. So you will be doing that within your virtual platforms. You'll be making phone calls home. So that's a little different because in the past, we know we didn't really have a lot of communication between aides and parents, but in this distance learning virtual environment, we've had to shift of how we do that. So we're going to be giving you some protocols around that. I call them scripts, so that, you know, when you're calling home, things that you kind of stay away from, but things that you can, you know, take back to your teacher or your administrator if it's something that you just don't know, and that's okay. You'll be asked to take data and record student work. You may be asked to assist with informal interpretations between home and school, and you will be asked to help make packets and materials to be sent home. On this slide, there is a link that really outlines more in detail of some of the expectations and also some of the trainings that we've already thought about, but of course, getting feedback from the sessions that we're having today, we may be adding to that. So you'll be getting a copy of this PowerPoint, and it is something I recommend after I go through. You should take another time. Sometimes it's good to go through it again, and you could go through it on your own when we email it out. Next slide. So more about job expectations. You should be participating in classroom and site meetings. It's important for you to collaborate with your teacher so that you know what the expectations are, but also it's important to go to the site meetings because they're going to have like logistic information, like where do you sign in terms of being in this new virtual environment, or what are your hours, or how do you put in absences, what PDs do you need to go to? So things like that may come up in those meetings, but we will also be reaching out to you. So it's very important for you to check your email daily and inform your teacher or office manager of any absences. Email is going to be our primary communication tool with you. And I know that's not something that we've always had in the past. I know we've done a lot of mailing of letters, sometimes phone calls, but now that we're all getting Chromebooks, it would be important for you to check your email daily. Follow site attendance protocols. People have asked in my last session, oh, what protocols, how do we do that? What are we supposed to do when we sign in at school? And what I'll say is that every school is a little different. So check in with your office manager because many times they will know, or your teacher or your principal. It's important that you're available during your regular work hours. So whatever time you start and whatever time you end, you have to be available, minus your breaks and your lunch break. It's important to work collaboratively with your principal, teacher, and any other staff that work in the classroom. And as always, we all want to do what's best for our students. So that's why we're here. They're our clients. And be flexible with distance learning because this is all new for us. And I'm going to say what I said in the last session, flexibility is the key word. We have to be flexible. We're not going to get this right all the time, right? And if there's a power outage, there's a power outage. We live in California. We've had fires, we've had a lot of things. And so sometimes things like that happen. So we work around that as well. But anytime that something happens, it is important for you to communicate. If you are somewhere and there's a power outage, I would expect you to communicate that to your teacher, the office manager, or your principal. Next slide. Oh, before I leave that slide, you have an MOU, Teamsters. We did work with Teamsters to negotiate a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today. And I recommend that you go back and read through the MOU. Next slide. So this comes up a lot, and I get a lot of calls about this. Who can direct my work? So it is important to know the difference between who's directing your work, specifically in terms of evaluation, but also who's managing what you do and assigning tasks. So the principal is your administrator supervisor. They complete your annual evaluation. If a dispute comes up, we hope not, they would help to resolve those disputes. And if you ever had to get a time card for something, saying doing something extra, then that administrator would sign or approve that time card. So any type of approvals. The teacher is the instructional leader and a manager of the work that you do in the classroom. So making schedules, assigning students that you work with, providing materials to use, and assigning tasks to support the overall classroom. And other related support providers work with our students, like behaviorists, speech therapists, and our occupational therapists. So they may give you some instructions or directions on techniques to use with students, like prompting, reinforcing certain behaviors, taking data, and any use of sensory strategies as well. Next slide. So one of the things that we've done, and I've been in, this is my 4th year as director in special ed, And one of the things when I first came into this job, we started working on aligning our job description. So we were able to get that done. And some of you actually gave a lot of feedback. We also worked with your union on this. But a letter was sent to you by HR in July 2020, giving you kind of information. I want to say cursory information about your job descriptions and where you fall. But we've been able to align all of our job descriptions. We had a lot of different levels, and it wasn't conducive to what we needed to support our students with the varying disabilities. So now we have 3 levels: paraprofessional 1, 2, and 3. And in those levels, there's different things that happen, and we'll go more into that. We're going to have a specific training on that. But when you get this PowerPoint, you can also just look through what some of those different things are in each of those job descriptions. Next slide. So now we're going to talk about resources and upcoming PD. Next slide. So some of the resources that we're already providing you, and hopefully all of you by next week, the end of next week, will have your Chromebooks. So Chromebooks, we are making sure are provided for all of our SPED paraprofessionals. Also, if you need Wi-Fi, we have hotspots. So later in this PowerPoint, there is a link that you can go to request a hotspot if you don't have Wi-Fi. We also, some of our people, paraprofessionals, are actually working inside of the classroom because some of the teachers are teaching from the classroom. And so sometimes some people may be there helping put together packets or, put together materials that need to be picked up or delivered to students. So our goal is to make sure that we have safe workspaces on campus when needed. And in terms of professional development, this is one of the things that we're doing, is kind of giving you an overview of expectations. And then, like I said, Lori, later in the presentation, we'll be doing just kind of a brief overview, but we'll have more time to kind of delve in a little bit more. But using technology, using the digital platforms that we have in the district, what do we do to work in an online environment? Understanding more about special education. We know we have not done a lot of training in many years, and so we really do want to spend more time doing training on how to best work with their students and any type of best practices for meeting the needs of our students with disabilities. And in this year, we're going to be doing a lot of work. As you know, a lot is going on in our world, and we really do find the importance to continue and to do more work on race and equity. We'll also have some office hours where you can ask questions in live time, and I, as the director, and our program specialist will help me man those, and time in your schedule to collaborate at your school. And many times the collaboration period tends to be in the morning because instruction doesn't start until 10. Next slide. So this was the question I had said about the Chromebook. So if you haven't picked up your Chromebook, there's 2 things you can do. You can show up on September 20th, 2020, from 8 to 11 to pick it up, and it's the drive-through. Or you can email Steve Collins at scollins@wccusd.net to make an appointment to pick it up. But our last pickup will be September 2nd, 2020. And our office has moved. We're no longer in Pinole. We're at 2625 Bernard Street. We're on the same campus as Vista High School and Transition.
Sonia, our address is 3000 Parker.
Right, but this is where they're picking up, is the 2625 Bernard
correct,
Street.
right.
Yes.
So we are on the back side if you are looking for us. And we're hardly in the office due to this pandemic. So if you need to reach out to us and you want us to show up, meet you, you have to send us a message letting us know you want to meet, and we can, meet up or
right.
maybe even do a Zoom meeting with you.
Right. But for the Chrome pickup, we're using the 2625 Bernard Street. Okay. Next slide. So, like I said, if you need a hotspot, there's a link on this slide that I'm pointing to, or I don't know if I'm pointing to it, but there is a link on the slide. Oh, thank you, Lori. So that link will get you the hotspot request. So if you go into it, they're going to probably ask for your name, the school site, your ID number, and you can request your hotspot through there. Next slide. So we are on online protocols, and now I'm going to turn it over to Lori.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation. Just so you know, oops, what's going on here? No, that's not what I want. There it is. Okay. This presentation is set up for you as a resource. So when Sonia sends the one that she's going through, she's also going to be sending this one too. So I'm going to go through this, and it may or may not make sense to you. I'm just going to say that right up front, but I want you to be open-minded and just listen and watch. I think it's better if you listen and watch instead of trying to do it at the same time, because I'm going to go pretty quickly through a few things. I'm going to be talking about the Chromebooks, Gmail, and Google Calendar. So I'm just time check because I want to make sure that I stay within my time. All right. So this is basically, these are the outcomes. I'm going to go over the Chromebook. I realize not everyone has a Chromebook yet, but I'm also going to go over how to access your Gmail, how to navigate the Google Calendar, and also how to access any calendar invitations that you receive. I am the person on the right with the "We Got This," and that's my email address, lroberts@wccusd.net. I'm the secondary ed tech coach for the school district, and I just started my 25th year with the district. So I've been here a while. So, all right, so this is a Chromebook. I'm going to show you mine. So I have a Chromebook. This is a Chromebook. It's a little bit smaller than a regular laptop. It also runs differently. It doesn't run on Windows. It doesn't run on, you know, any kind of Macintosh operating system. It runs on its own operating system. And that operating system really needs to be on Wi-Fi. So it's important that if you don't have any Wi-Fi at home, that you make sure that you get a hotspot, because otherwise this is going to work very minimally for you, okay? But anyway, so this is what it looks like. The power button, just so you know, is on the left side. Oops, can't see it. And as you can see, mine is blue right now because it's on. That becomes different colors, meaning different things. The most important one is that when it's blinking yellow, that means it's not going to turn on because it doesn't have enough charge. So you need to plug it in. It's blinking yellow. If you're trying to turn it on, it's blinking yellow, please go ahead and charge it. All right. So the way that this works is you have to log into a Chromebook. You can't just open it up and it work for you. You have to log into it, and you have to log into it with your WCCUSD login. The way that works is you're going to be logging in. You're going to click on sign in with a different account. This screen on the left is going to come up immediately when you open up the Chromebook. And then what you're going to do is in that box where it says enter your email, I want you to not worry about what it says here, which is at wccschools.org. Don't worry about that. You're going to type in your whole email address. So for instance, mine is lroberts@wccusd.net. I would type that into that box. And then don't worry about it, that at wccschools.org piece is going to go away when I type in my whole email address. Then I click on next. And then after that, I put in your password. Now, there have been some questions about passwords. It sounds like IT set it up so that you're going to be putting in your email address, whatever your email address is. It might be your first name, last name, at wccusd.net. It might be something different. But your password is probably your 6-digit ID number right now, okay? So if you have a Chromebook and you haven't been able to get in because you didn't know the password, I believe that that is the password that they set up for you. All right. Okay, so Once you are in, there is there's a menu that is located by clicking on the clock in the bottom right-hand corner. And this menu is actually really important because it shows you what Wi-Fi you're set up on. This is also a really good place for you to turn off the Chromebook instead of using the power button on the side. I hardly ever use the power button on the side. I use it to turn it on when I start using it. And then after that, I just use the power button that is on the screen, okay? So let me go to the next thing because this is important. The next one is how to connect to your home Wi-Fi. So again, you're going to click on the clock, the bottom right-hand corner, and then you're going to click on where it says not connected if that's what happens. And that's probably what's going to happen because it's a brand new Chromebook. It's never been connected to your home Wi-Fi. You're going to select whichever is your Wi-Fi, okay? So make sure you're picking the right one, and you're going to put in the password, and you're going to click on connect, and it should just be seamless. It should just connect, okay? So this is a really important piece. Like I said, you really need to be hooked up with Wi-Fi in order for this Chromebook to work the way we need it to. So once it's on, I'm going to talk a little bit about what it looks like. So there's a picture there. Here's mine here. There are two cameras. There's a camera up at the top of the screen, and I'm sure you can't see it on mine, but it's like a little hole. And then there's a second camera, which is just above the keyboard. And you probably can't see that because that's not real good, but there is a second camera. Why is there a second camera? Because that way that can be used, that's called a world-facing camera, and so it can be used as an actual camera, okay? I can take this, I can flip it, and then I can point it this way and use the camera, okay? And that's really great for students to be able to do too. So that is the world-facing camera, and that's why there are two cameras. Okay, so there's the apps launcher, which is on the bottom of the screen. It's like just a circle, and I'll talk about the apps launcher in a minute. And then there's the system tray, which is also at the bottom, and these are different applications. The first one is Google Drive. The second one is Google Chrome. That one's really important. That's how you get into Google Classroom. It's how you get it onto the internet. And it's actually how you get into all these other things as well. The other three, the next three are Gmail, Google Docs, and YouTube. And those are all web-based, which means you have to be on the internet. You have to be on the web in order to access them. Okay, let me just move this over here. So, and then again, there's that other menu where if you click on the clock, you don't even have to click on the clock. You actually see your Wi-Fi. You see, you also see the battery, how much battery life you have. All right, moving on. So on the keyboard itself, you have volume control, and you can also mute the sound. But what I want to explain to you is that when you press that mute button, you aren't muting yourself on like a Zoom call or a Meet. You're not hearing the sound, okay? You're not here. You're basically turning off all the sound that's coming out of your computer. So if you're in a Zoom and you want to mute yourself, you're going to have to click on mute, right? It's not this key. This key will turn off all the sound. There's also volume control just to the right of that mute button. And then the headphone jack is on the same side as the power button. I don't know if you can see that. Okay. So there are several differences if you're used to using a full keyboard, right? Either on a desktop or on a laptop, there are some differences. So for instance, there's no caps lock key. Instead of the caps lock key, there's a search key. And there's no delete key, but that's okay. That's all right. That doesn't mean you're not going to delete anything. It just means that you're going to have to use the backspace instead. And then touchpad differences, and I want to explain this a little bit. So the touchpad is the rectangle just below the keyboard. And one thing that you may notice is that if you've ever worked on a laptop is that there are no buttons. So you're probably wondering, how do I click on things? The whole touchpad is a button. So I want to also advocate for, and it's okay to use 2 fingers, your 2 index fingers instead of just 1, to use this mouse pad. And I say this with all mouse pads, okay? And we'll talk about that in a minute because I'm going to talk about clicking and dragging things. All right. So again, I'm not going to go over this. I'm going to say it really quickly. This whole presentation will be sent to you and you can use it to go over it in your own time, okay? So definitely check that out. But basically at the bottom of the screen, right, if you open the apps launcher, which is a circle on the left side, it's going to open up more shortcuts to different applications. Applications such as Gmail and Files and the camera. So I'm going to go very quickly over Gmail and Google Calendar. These are really important because we use these all the time. So I want to talk for a minute about getting around. So there's something that we call the waffle, and someone in the last group said, why is it called the waffle? I said, well, that's how we've been explaining it to teachers, and it's great to explain it to kids because it looks like a waffle. I mean, I think it looks like a waffle. I don't know, maybe I'm just hungry all the time. But the waffle is in the upper right-hand corner on applications such as Google Search, Gmail, Google Drive, Google Calendar. It's always in the upper right-hand corner, okay? And what is it? Well, it's basically a way to get to shortcuts for applications. So I'm going to show you really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and go to Google, just so I can give you an idea. So in the upper right-hand corner, I'm going to blow this up a little bit if I can. It's not going to let me now, of course. There it is. Upper right-hand corner, there's this. That's the waffle. When I click on it, I get all of these different applications. So when I click on one of these, for instance, if I click on Gmail, it will just go ahead and open up my Gmail. So that's basically what the waffle does. And here's the waffle again. Okay, if I click here, I can click here, Classroom. It'll take me to Google Classroom. It actually opens up another tab in this case. And you can rearrange the apps in the waffle by clicking and dragging. And that's something that, like I said, you're going to use 2 fingers, 1 finger to click and hold down the mouse pad, and the other to actually move things around. Okay, so one of the things that you can get to is Gmail through the waffle. So this is for you later when you're practicing, give you an idea of how to get into Gmail. So just a few things. Remember that Gmail, just like Sonia said, this is a really important piece because this is how the district is communicating with all of us. Since we are all at home and we don't have any teacher boxes to go to, this is how they're communicating with us. So it's really important, and it's a good thing to get into, opening your email first thing in the morning and checking it. So if you have a personal Gmail account, it's the exact same it's going to look exactly the same as your personal email account. It's just going to be connected to your WCCUSD account instead. So it has all the same features. So if you're comfortable with Gmail already, you're going to know all this stuff. And also, just so you know that the Gmail portal, so Gmail can be customized to look however you want it to look, but make sure you get comfortable with it first. So here are some basics. The first thing is I want to share with you, there are some settings that you can put in place immediately, and they're called quick settings. And on the left of this slide, I basically show you that if you click on the settings cog, which is just to the left of the waffle in Gmail, that what comes up is something called quick settings. And I've actually listed out the quick settings that you should use to make it easier for you to get to your Gmail. Now, later on, once you're comfortable, you may want to change those. Hey, that's fine. That's up to you. Okay? So check that out later. On the right, what I did was I linked for you. All the Gmail help is here. And basically, that is all the Google Gmail help. It's a place. I'm going to click on it so I can show you. Whoops. Go back. When I open this up, I get this describe your issue, where I can just go ahead and type in, right? How do I send an email message? Let's see what it comes up with. There's the answer right there. It tells me where to go, what to click on, all the stuff. You can ask really complicated questions, and I really suggest that anytime you use Google, anytime you use any kind of search bar within Google, that you put in as much information as you can. You can put in whole sentences. When you put in whole sentences, when you put in more details, you're going to get better answers back. A lot of times people try to put in the fewest words humanly possible, but I don't suggest doing that. I really suggest putting in as many words as you possibly can. Okay, so I also have in here information about creating a Gmail signature, and I want to explain that. That's the stuff at the bottom of someone's Gmail that basically has their name. Maybe it has their phone number. It could have different things like quotes that they find, you know, important, ways to get in touch with them. This is a really kind of professional way of treating your Gmail, always having a Gmail signature. So I have information. When you get this presentation, you click on that link and it will give you the step-by-step on how to set up a Gmail signature. I also have linked here information on how to read a Gmail message, right? Because when you first open up Gmail, everything is just like one line. So it basically tells you how to read it, how to reply to it. And because I know that you're going to be doing things like keeping records of your students, also how to send attachments. So if you have to send an attachment of something, that will tell you how to do that. I also have a link in here for tips and tricks. So Google Calendar is the next one I want to talk about. Again, this is an application that you can get to with the waffle, right? The waffle is our friend. I hope you all love waffles, because I do for sure. Okay, so when you go to Google Calendar, and I am going to go ahead and go into Google Calendar. I'll show you mine. So this is Google Calendar, and you can actually change the view. Week is my favorite way to look at this. As you can see up here, right next to the waffle, up in the upper right-hand corner, there's this lovely little box. And if I click on it, I get some choices. Let me make this a little smaller here. I can see it by day, so I'd only see one day at a time. By week, which is what you're looking at right now. I can see the whole month, which gets a little complicated, and year gets really complicated. So there are different ways to look at it. So if I, for instance, if I click on month, it gives me a month view, okay? I can very easily go back to week view by just using the W key on my keyboard. So I'm just gonna tap W and it goes back to week. So there are some choices there. Just remember, click here on the box right next to the waffle and it will give you your choices. And you can just go ahead and click around and see which one you like the best. I personally like week, that's my favorite one. Okay. So a lot of times you're going to receive an invitation to a class or a meeting, and it will be set up in Google Calendar. So I want to tell you that you will also get an email. Anytime you're invited to a meeting, you're also going to get an email, and you can accept that invitation within email as well. But I'm going to show you how to do it within Google Calendar, because I personally get a lot of emails and I don't always get the invitation. And so sometimes what ends up happening is I'll go into my calendar, let's see if I can find something, and I will find things that I did not, for instance, like this one, I didn't respond to. I know that I didn't respond to it because it's white. It's just in outline, okay? It's not a color, it's just white. So when I click on it, at the very bottom, I hope you guys see that, at the very, very bottom of the screen, it says yes, no, maybe. So that's where I respond. I can click on yes, I can click on no, or I can click on maybe. And then that's my RSVP, basically. Okay, so now if you've already accepted something, and I go through a little more information about accepting recurrent meetings and things like that on here, and that's what this visual
Lori,
over as well.
this may be a specific question. It says, calendar asks if I want to show notifications. Do I want to do that?
That's up to you. I show notifications on mine, and basically what that does is a little pop-up will come up about 10 minutes before your meeting starts to remind you. That has been a lifesaver. It was a lifesaver this morning when I had an 8 o'clock meeting and I'd actually forgotten about it, but luckily I was already on my computer. So I would just say yes to the notifications. I wouldn't say yes to notifications on everything because that gets a little messy, but definitely for California, for calendar. It's been a long day already. Okay, so once you have already accepted, and even if you haven't accepted the meeting, you can still go ahead and join the Zoom or join the Google Meet through Google Calendar. So let me show you how that's done. Okay, so here's my calendar. Oh, this is really helpful too. There's a Today button. If you click on Today, it'll take you to today, which is great. So for instance, if I were to click on here, and I know it's in the past, but that's okay. I'm gonna click on that. There's this button that says Join with Google Meet. That's all I have to do. If I know that that's the event that I'm going to, all I have to do is click Join with Google Meet and I'm in. That's it. Pretty simple. That's how this is really helpful. So I would say, I know I said check your email first thing in the morning. I would check my calendar first thing in the morning as well. I think that's really important. Because that way you open it up, you leave it open, and you can very easily get into all of your meetings that way. Okay, I think that's about it. One more thing I have to say is that we will be sending you an invitation to a Google Classroom. And all you're going to have to do with that is click on the link and it will put you into the Google Classroom. This Google Classroom is going to be set up just for you, just for the paraprofessionals, and it will have resources there that will help you through hopefully help you through many of these things that we've been talking through. And they're available to you 24/7, so you can go ahead and check them out at any time. We haven't sent the invitation yet, but we will be sending it to you via email. So just keep an eye out for that.
Lori, just one more piece, because we're doing pretty good on time, is somebody wants to know about Clever, and Clever is not under the waffle.
No, it's not. No, that's a separate thing. It's not a Google application.
And so sometimes I've seen Clever within a Google Classroom. I've seen it on the toolbar.
And it really depends about, how paraprofessionals are getting in, and I'm not even sure about that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's something that I would have you work with your teacher on, because that's very specific. And we're kind of focusing more on just kind of an overview of your Google suite.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, because my teacher was also in Jeopardy. She said that she didn't know, and I must ask during the training from any of the technicians. So that's why I just forwarded this question, because I was unable to have an access to that. And without that, I cannot attend the needs of my students for Read 180 classes.
Okay. So
last year,
please speak to your teacher about that. Please speak to the teacher about that, because they should be able to help you.
Okay.
Well, last year at the end,
I was going to say, and if the teacher doesn't know, they can reach out to Francie Kuniak, who is she knows everything Clever.
Yes, true.
And Heather, go ahead.
Francie?
Can you please put her name in the chat, because last year we had SPED teachers at De Anza who were trying to access Clever and were not able to access Clever. So we've already encountered those issues this year, and I have gen ed teachers trying to figure out how to get me into Clever. But I know that last year's actual SPED teachers at De Anza weren't able to be accessing Clever.
I'm putting it in right now, Sonia.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you too. Thanks, Lori.
Uh-huh.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about online protocols. Next slide. So when we're talking about just really how we're creating this new environment that we have virtually, right? And there's some things that we can do to make sure that it is the best that it can be, right? This is all challenging, but it's the best that it can be. So one of the things that we've noticed is that it's important to have an appropriate space in your house that has good lighting. Right? So especially for our students, they need to be able to see you clearly. Some of our students have vision, issues, and so it's important to have good lighting so that they can recognize you. I said in the other session that it was also great when my son's aide was able to get on and he was able to see her, that he was very, very excited about that. So it's important to, be able to see the students, but also for the students to be able to see you. It's important to also stay on the camera so students and staff kind of know that you're there. I know what my son does is that he goes through and he checks to see who's in the room because he wants to see his his classmates, but he also wants to see his teachers and aides. When you're not talking, it's important to put mute on because, we're at home, many of us, and so we get background noise. I'm fortunate that I'm upstairs and the family tends to be downstairs, but sometimes my husband has come in and just started talking, and thank goodness I was on mute. So it's good to, when you're not speaking, to put yourself on mute. It's also important to remember that we're at school, right? So we should be wearing professional attire. And so we shouldn't be in our pajamas. We want to make sure that we are ready to work and during our professional hours, right? Our time carded hours. And then it's important to smile, right? This is all hard for all of us. And so I know there's many mornings where I get up and I'm not in the best mood. That's why I always make sure I drink my coffee and I get myself, right and get in the right mindset, because this has been very hard on all of us. We're in distance learning because we're also going through a major health crisis, the pandemic, right? And so that is very stressful on our families. It's stressful on us. And so part of our job is that sometimes we have to really find that thing that makes us smile. And I know many of you, once you see your students, many times that can do it. So being energetic and positive and just making sure that you're engaged. It's important also to practice typing in the chat, which is like what we've done today, where we did the attendance and then you said things that you wanted to learn. But as you start doing more on your own, maybe in Google, practice sharing your screen and other features, because this takes practice. I actually was really good at using Google Meets, not as, as I want to say efficient or proficient in using Zoom, but the more I use it, the more comfortable I become. And of course, arriving on time to sessions. It's like we're going to work. This is our new workplace, right? So making sure that we're on camera. And if you're going to be late, always inform someone. We know things happen. Next slide. So it is important to remember, this is what if I see something I'm concerned about? And I'm concerned about it. Number one, we have to always remember we are still mandated reporters. Just like if we were in the building and we saw something that we felt was not okay, we should report that. And there's different levels of reporting. Sometimes it's just reporting to the teacher or to the administrator. But if it's something that crosses the line, the things that we learn about in our mandated training, those things need to be reported to the county. But I would also let my administrator or my teacher know, hey, I saw this and I'm going to report it. At the end of the day, you have mandated reporter obligations. So you really want to make sure that you do that. And it is important too that some of you are going to be working with a student on your own, that you set up a log to document any individual sessions. It's important for us as well for your teacher, because they're going to be putting that information into their service tracking hours on SACE. So all the time that we spend with students, depending on what their IEP says, that information needs to be accounted for. Next slide. Okay, so should I be communicating with parents? In the past, when we were in the brick and mortar, this was something that we actually discouraged. Now we're in this new environment and we are in people's homes. So it is very hard to not communicate with your families, but we also need your help in communicating with our families because of the things that we have going on now. So the virtual environment is very different and parents are going to interact with you, but you should only communicate about what your teacher or your principal has instructed you to discuss. And any information that needs to be reported back, make sure it gets back to the right person, either the teacher or the principal. And then make sure you review with case managers what to say and how to respond. This next slide, are some, I call them sentence starters or statements to basically, pretty much say, help you not be in that kind of awkward or difficult position. So the first one is, I will share with the case manager what you communicated to me. So if a parent told me something, I wouldn't try to answer it, but I would just use this statement. I would try to write down verbatim what they said, and then communicate that back to the case manager. The second one is, any questions or concerns about the IEP or distance learning can be sent to, and you can give them the teacher's name and their email. The next one would be, the focus of this session is to work with your student on. So if you're doing reading, if you're doing writing, if you're doing math or science, you would say that. And these are activities that have been given to me by the teacher, right? So you want to make sure that you put that in there. And so if there are questions that they have, then you could go back to number one and say, I will share with the case manager what you communicated to me, or with the teacher. And then that last sentence is, I can give you the contact information for the principal, teacher, speech therapist, so you can reach out to them with this information. Because many times they will ask you about services, they may ask you about service minutes, specific things like that that are in the student's IEP, and you don't have to answer those. Please put it back to the appropriate person. Okay. And next slide. So what we've been doing for these first 2 weeks is really building connections and relationships. This is something we wanted to make sure that we were able to do, just because there's so much going on in our children's lives, in our lives, in everyone's lives. And so this was really a key piece. And I want to say, pretty much everyone in our organization talked about the need for this. We didn't really have time to do this when we did school closure. We just sort of stopped. We were working on building the plan, and then we just started back up. And so we did not spend enough time on this. And so we really wanted to make sure we started out with this year. Next slide. Relationships and connections. So the quote here is, every kid is one caring adult away from being a success story. And so you all are adults in the students' lives. It doesn't always have to be the teacher. It doesn't always have to be the principal. It could be a counselor. It could be a coach. It could be the custodian. It could be the office manager. But anyone that shows that they care about a student, students need that and they react to that. And many times when you see very successful adults, they actually go back and say, I remember when Mr. such and such or Mrs. such and such did this. So those things are really, really important. So the two triangles that you see are called conditions for teaching and learning. And the left triangle is more for the teacher and the parent, and then the right triangle is more for the student. But if you notice at the very bottom, because we're going to go bottom to the top, there are specific basic things that we all need, right? We all need to have our basic physical needs met. We need to feel safe, and we need to feel secure, right? And many times that's like having the Chromebook so that we can engage with our students. We need to have the right tools. Those are kind of like basic needs, I would say. We need to know, hey, what are the expectations, which is what we're going over in this presentation. So just kind of having those basic needs met. If we're at the school building, we would need to know, is it safe to be there? We're in a pandemic, right? So those are important things that we're going to be working on. And hopefully you're in meetings with your sites, buildings, managers to kind of know of what that looks like if you do need to go into the building. The second part of the triangle for both are connectedness with emotional regulation, right? So just having that opportunity to connect, to feel like you're a part of, right? To feel that you're valuable. And once again, we know that that didn't really happen in the spring. A lot of people felt like, no one told me what I needed to do. And by the time we sort of figured that out, some people felt like, okay, am I not needed anymore? There was a lot of anxiety, and we're going to acknowledge that and, apologize for that. But we're in a pandemic. These are unprecedented times, right? When we know better, we do better. And so that is one of the things that we've really tried to focus on for these first 2 weeks, making sure that people have their questions answered, they're getting what they need, and people are also understanding their role in this different type of learning environment. And so, as you go up the triangle, if you look at the student side, once they have those first two met, they're ready to learn, right? If they don't have those first two met, many times you see the discipline issues, right? You see kids not engaging, turning off. But it also is the same for our adults, right? Teachers, parents, and you. And we consider, in this thing, we consider you a teacher, right? You're supporting the students with education. So it's important that you have those first two things met so that you can learn. And then we're able to get to that next level of teaching. And if you don't have the tools, like if we didn't have Chromebooks, how can you then provide that level of support that many of our students need? So that's just something to continue to think about. And if there are things that you feel like you don't need, please tell your teachers. Then if you feel like that's not getting where, I would say go up the chain of command, then go to your administrators. And many of you have designated administrators for your departments. Okay, next slide. So just some strategies on how you can build relationships and connections. And I know I saw a couple of people taking notes, but you are going to get a copy of this PowerPoint. And I always recommend, I'm the type of person, I can hear something once, but then I go through, and that's how I learn as well. And it continues to resonate with me. But the first thing is, like we said, get to know your students. Before you can teach them, we just said that, you need to say, hey, how are you doing? Because some of our students are feeling very out of sorts. This is not how they imagine school would be. And as parents, we know, or even educators, we didn't think school would be this way either. So taking the time to kind of check in with people, see how they're doing. And if you have new students, right, in your class, because kids have moved up from levels, to find out who they are and how they think, and, how much time do they want to spend on a task. And some of those things are very, very important. Any positive reinforcements are encouraged. For my own child, just going through the distance learning, I do a lot of praise, especially when I feel like he's getting weary, playing games. So I give breaks, and we'll go and play a little game on his tablet, and then we'll come back to the work. So those are some things that you can do that can, help build positive interaction. And, I just said this, but understanding we're all experiencing the same thing together, the stress of COVID-19. I remember when we closed, who knew we would be doing this? And Lori and I talked about this earlier. Who knew we would be doing this? So just remembering that everybody has stress, and even we recognize you have stress. So be flexible. Don't be so hard on yourself. If you're not getting it right away, let someone know, you know what, right now I'm not in the headspace. I need a little bit more time, right? So you have to express what it is that you need. Synchronous, so we've talked a lot about synchronous and asynchronous. So synchronous is that live interaction that we are working with students. And so it's like how we're doing now. We are doing synchronous instruction, but sometimes they may have asynchronous instruction. So they may watch a video. You may have asynchronous PD. So you may watch a video about something that you need to learn more about. And what's nice about that is that you can stop it, you can speed it up. You're like, oh, I already know that. You can maybe skip some things, but many times in synchronous, you don't get that immediate feedback. So if you ask a question, you have to wait to get the answer. But in synchronous, it's live time. And then interacting with everyone, being kind, fair, letting the students know that we are safe. We're the safe place for them, right? Because many times their households may be stressful, because we know sometimes when adults are stressed, that, carries down to our children. And so just remembering that. And so one of the things that we really did put in to our plan for this year is to have the Wellness Fridays. So when you're not doing PD, there's a time where we can just spend time just checking in with each other, and that looks different on every school site. So, just having that piece or that day to do that, while our students are kind of doing more of the asynchronous time. So they may be going in and doing assignments and turning them in through Google Classroom. And then once again, I think I've already said this again, reaching out when you need help and support. My great grandmother used to say this. She was very wise for only having an 8th grade education, but she would always say, a closed mouth does not get fed. So if you do not say anything, no one's gonna know what you need. So if you need help or you need support, you have to say something. And if you say it to one person and they don't respond, like I said, continue to go up that chain. Next slide. So this one I'm not going to go into, but this is something when you get the PowerPoint, you can go back and peruse. It's tips and tricks for increasing student engagement, and it's a lot of kind of really neat strategies. So you can always go back and look at that and pick the one that works for you. Many times when we give people, different strategies, I always say, oh, that's not really me. You know who you are, you know your personality. So pick the ones that you feel comfortable with, because you want it to be authentic and feel comfortable. Next slide. So the first weeks of school, next slide. So these first 2 weeks of school, what have we been doing, right? We've been making contact with our teacher and principal, and I'm sure you all have done that by now. We're following the schedule given to us by the teacher. We're practicing using our Chromebook and digital platforms. If you don't have that Chromebook, make sure you get it by September 2nd. If there are any videos, we'll be looking at videos as we start to build out our PD plan. There will be opportunities for you to go and do that during these Fridays. Attending, like you're attending today, this is considered a PD day. And we're also going to be building in office hours that you can come and check in. And I know Ed Tech has some office hours that they have that they're going to be open to. And like Lori said, they're going to be doing some specific things for you in Google where you can go and get information. Of course, building your relationships with the students and the colleagues that you work with. And the new one is really checking email daily. This is the fastest way that we can get in contact with you. In the past, we've sent letters and we've made phone calls, but the fastest way we can get in contact with you is to check your emails. And I think Lori kind of mentioned looking at your calendar, checking your email. Those are 2 things I recommend you do at the beginning of the morning. And then, of course, asking questions, and any PD, make sure you calendar it. Next slide. So once again, we are stronger together. It's important that we have that united front. This distance learning, we're doing this in families' homes, right? And so say, for example, some instruction is happening or someone does something on our end that doesn't really make sense. Don't address it at that moment. Choose another time, you know, maybe during your prep time or during your office hours to address it. It's very important for our families to see us working together and working together positively, right? So we really want to, and we know that we're all human. Sometimes there's going to be conflict, but it's how we handle that conflict and where we handle that conflict. That's most important. And we are stronger together. We're going to get through this. Like we said, Lori said, we can do it. And, you know, there's things I've learned that I didn't know, I want to say 10 weeks ago. Next slide. So many times when we have these PDs, you know, if it's not a webinar, there may be some way that we capture it because it may be in Keenan. But in webinars like these, you're going to start to hear type your name. And that's how we started this one. Type your name and school in the chat. And that's how we check attendance, right? Because your administrators would like to know, oh, who was able to go through this? Because we're going to be sending them this PowerPoint as well. So if people were not able to do this, they may then have another time where they want to review some of these things with you. But it's important that you put your name and your school for attendance. I think someone asked me about personal attendance, and I'm assuming that means at school. Like I said, we have 54 schools. Everyone's doing it differently. I would check in with your office manager to find out how they want you to do the sign in and the sign out. Next slide. Is that you, Lori? So this is the time we have for questions, and we have about 15 minutes because I do want to stop at 3 and honor your time. But are there specific questions? And we're a pretty small group. We were asking people to put them in the chat, but if we don't get to it, you may want to put it in the chat so we can make sure we capture it. But if you have questions now, you can just take off your mic and ask them. Elizabeth, did I answer your question?
Yes, actually, you were talking about stress, and I know how stressed we are. And the teacher has been talking to me and comparing with the schools about our working hours. So at first, when we receive a letter from HR, I just want to clarify that so we are in the same page. We were expecting something from HR. So when the school made up the schedule, the school schedule, we're supposed to start at 10 o'clock. Okay, I work 5 hours. I'm just talking for myself, okay? Because I need to respond my teacher, so I don't know. So if I start working at 10 and the school ends at 2:05, and she told me, so many days I've been working up to after 4 o'clock. She called me or to connect on the screen. And I told her I only work 5 hours. Okay. So I told her I'm available before 10 o'clock if you need me during the prep time. But I don't think, I mean, it should be like limits to contact after school hours. Like today I was in the staff meeting and she was testing me about my working hours again, you know. So is it possible that something is sent to the teachers? That's what I need to know.
Yes. So
I will contact
should only work their
office
hours.
manager to ask her.
Yes. So you only work
Yes.
your hours. And
Okay.
so everyone has such different hours. So, you know, like we have aides that are preschool, but you should talk to your principal and tell him what your hours are. And then you all come up with the agreement of the hours that you're going to work.
Oh, okay.
You know, in terms of the time, right?
Yes,
So,
of course. Yes.
and to me, that prep time, there could be, you don't have to do the whole prep time, but maybe there's some time in there where you guys are connecting to talk about what you're going to do for the day, right? And
Yes.
then
Yes.
when
I
your
think
day
that's
ends,
important.
your day ends. And no more after that.
Okay. Because I'm
Okay?
usually with a group of students and she just connects a little bit before and then she keeps going and okay. So thank you so
So,
much. I will
right,
talk to my
it's called
office
setting
manager
your
and find out
boundaries, but
how and
yeah,
then
and set
repair.
your boundaries. And if you feel like it's not working, then talk to your principal.
Okay. Thank you so
Okay?
much.
No
I'm
problem.
sorry to bring a personal issue.
Oh, no, but
Okay.
it's about hours. So yes, because I think that was one of the things that was in the PowerPoint. You are working, you're available during your work hours.
Yes.
After hours, you're not available. One of the things too, I mean, I'm kind of guilty of this, is that sometimes I try not to even answer emails after a certain time, because I think sometimes we create these situations where we, we have to set our boundaries. That's what I'm going to say. So
Yes,
set our
yes,
boundaries and you
I
work
agree.
your
And I
hours.
usually, first thing I read my emails in the morning or after the school.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay,
So
thank you so
set
much.
your boundaries, work your hours. And then, like I said, if you need just more support around that, check in with your administrator. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Sonia. We
Ms.
appreciate it.
Neely Johnson, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm having a difficult time with this Chromebook, and what my difficulties stem from is for me not even being able to log into my Wi-Fi at home. I couldn't even turn it on because it's asking me for my Xfinity passcode and my Wi-Fi, and I know there's nothing that you guys can do about that. So I called Xfinity to see if they can tell me. I think either it's my phone number, it said enter your phone number or your email address, and I did that, and I changed my password, but it's still giving me the same nothing. It's telling me to sign in again and again. So I'm waiting for a call back from Xfinity. I really don't know how to get access to it. I don't remember what my password was. That was 3 years ago when I set it up, and I unfortunately forgot it or didn't write it down and misplaced it. And so I'm just having a hard time with this Chromebook getting on to get anything from Gmail, email, whatever. I'm pretty fluent in knowing how to access those things, but I just can't access online, period. Can you help me?
I have Xfinity, and so yes, normally they will tell you, because when you put in your password, and what tends to happen is once you use whatever device you're using, it remembers your device, right? And you do that kind of connect automatically. And so once you get it in there, that will work. But you could try that, or you could just try to request a hotspot as well. But I would first maybe try to see if you can, talk to them and tell them to give you an updated password, or have you reset your password. I don't know, Lori, do you have any other suggestions?
I tried to do that, but it's not working.
So I don't have any suggestions on the Xfinity front because that's going to have to come from them. But I'm wondering, are you joining us today from a phone or from another device?
I'm joining you from my personal tablet. I went and bought a tablet because of this social distancing, and I got a desktop at home, but they said that it's better to use your Chromebook because of confidentiality issues and things of that nature. So I'm just trying to make sure that, I can use that when dealing with the students. And like I said, to no avail, I'm not getting anything. So they said they were going to reset my modem because they wouldn't do anything until that. But it's not a live person. It's all through machines. Voice, recordings and stuff. So I just was trying to make the attempt to get a live person online. On Xfinity, and that's not possible right now. So maybe in about 10 minutes after this modem resets, I don't know I don't know what to do. I guess I'll try to get in again. I don't know how to change my password, or if they're going to tell me something. I don't know if a live person is going to come on, but I'm frustrated with it, and I'm really not good with setup. And that's the problem I'm having, because this is a brand new device, and I don't know how to get it off the ground.
So let me ask Sonia, is there something about that, does she have to use the Chromebook right now, or can she use her desktop?
No, yeah, you can use your, some people are, so that was a question in the last session. Somebody wanted to know if they could use their personal computer, and you can. My recommendation though is that you would not do any type of recording, you know, for, well, actually, no, because if you would record, you would record within our platform. So I think as long as you're involved, as long as you're inside our platform, if you're going through Google and you're going through your email, the problem is that sometimes people go through their personal email, because like I know I have a Gmail account and I have the district account. So anytime I'm doing anything for work, I just make sure I go through my district account. So it's how you actually log into Gmail. Yes, Heather?
So I have my own personal Chromebook because the last district where I worked didn't provide Chromebooks, so I purchased one, and it's a godsend. It's because it's newer, and I have a separate Gmail account just for the district, and it makes everything so easy. And when we were not distance learning, if I was in a classroom with a student and theirs didn't work or it wasn't charged, then they could log in with their own private login on mine, and they were able to access Google Classroom through mine. And it just, I mean, and I know that's not everyone's capable of that, but it is, if it's possible, it really is the way to go.
So I think it's going back to Eve, what your question was, is that yes, you can use your personal, it's how you log in. So you log in through your district email. You use your district email, because many times if you already have a Gmail account, when you log in, like I actually have 4 accounts because I also have a jewelry business. So I have one for my jewelry business, then one for my personal, and then I have one for, you know, the district. And so I just make sure every time I log in, I'm logging in under the district. And so that should protect us in terms of confidentiality and all of that. But
Okay.
good luck on that.
Okay,
I know you want to try to make it work. I hope that works out. And if it doesn't, then maybe you just should get a hotspot. And so then you don't have to worry about that piece. Okay?
All right, thank you.
No problem. Okay, any more
I have
questions?
I have a question. Oh,
Okay.
well, what is the protocol for contacting families? Do we use our phones? Do we contact using some other device?
I'm going to ask Lori, because Lori is our expert on that. Now, that's what I do need to learn. So, Lori, how are we? So, first of all, if you used your own phone, because some people did not want to do the go through Google, but you know, you don't want your phone number, so you want to say *6.
So actually, I have, there's a way to run phone calls, and I have actually done this through Google Classroom and Google Meet. There's a way to do it. It's pretty amazing, and it works really well. And I will actually be putting this on the Google Classroom for all of you, but it's a step-by-step. And so there are a couple of things in there, though. You're going to have to, I may have to look over it and try to update it, but I think that everything is still correct because I just recently used it. But there is a way to make phone calls through Google Meet. So I'll just make sure that that's in the Google Classroom. So give me, you know, a couple of days on that because we're still working on that.
Okay. And then, but what is it if
I
you
just want to mention the
from a number,
understanding that
you
I
could say
have. I
*7?
understand that parents are not supposed to contact family members, and you know that that's supposed to be done to the head teacher or the teacher and the supervising teacher.
Right. And we just talked about that even our PowerPoint, that we're in this different learning environment. So you may sometimes have to, or when you're working with them, say you're working with them on your own, but you're still in their home through the virtual environment. So we're saying you sometimes will follow up, but it depends on the teacher. Some teachers may not be asking you to call, but they may. It depends. And so we were just trying to figure out, there's a we were saying you can do it through Google, but there's also like a star. It's either *67, *6. Someone wrote *69. Practice first, though. Call your friend using *69 to make sure it works. So.
Okay.
You can
Okay.
also hide your number in your cell phone. You just hide it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. See, we're learning all these new things.
You can do that, but can you do it for individual calls, or are you doing that for all calls?
For settings, in your call settings in your cell phone, you go in there and it says more settings, and then it says hide your number, show your number, and
Yeah,
there
so
is
then-
one more option. So you
Then
don't
you have
want
to
your
remember
number
to
to
go
show, you just
reset.
click on that one, and then when you want to, then you change it according to your needs. I do that.
Okay. And see, when we come together for future trainings, that's the other piece too. As we kind of all learn to do different things, we can bring other practices that we've learned, right? Because like I said, I haven't learned how to do the phone calling through Google. I'm going to try it one day. I just haven't done it. So I want to, Lori, when you send that out, I'll make sure I look through it and just try it out and see how it works.
It works like a charm. I'm not kidding.
Good.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Good, good, good. Okay, so we have about 2 minutes left. Any more questions? I was kind of looking through the chat. Alsa Dela Cruz is one of our program specialists. He's here for the El Cerrito Kennedy families, and so he was one of our co-hosts today, but he didn't have a lot of questions to have to answer today. The other group, it was a lot bigger. Okay, it is *67. Okay, good. So *67 to block your number. Good. Thank you, Denise.
Can I share that we just had a blackout for a minute?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I text your phone though to let you know what.
Yeah, I saw it. Right.
Okay.
I didn't expect to see you in this one because you were in the morning one, but
no, I came in late.
Oh, okay. So you wanted to see the first part. Yeah.
Right. I missed it, so I came back. So I didn't sign in the first one, so I did sign in this one.
Okay, good, good. Yeah. So *67 to block your number. Good. So that's good to know.
And
okay.
Someone asked about the blackouts in the chat. What's the answer about that? Because I live in Solano County. So what happens if we have a blackout? How is that? What's the protocol for all of that?
Well, I would just say when you are able to, I don't know if you can do any type of text or whatever, because sometimes I know when we have a blackout, I can still use my phone. So I would just
I would automatically text my teacher.
Yeah, that's the protocol. Text your teacher. Okay. Many of your teachers now have Remind. And so that's the other piece too. If you have Remind on your text there, and just let someone know. But yeah, we know. Go ahead.
Sorry. I emailed the Francine, the clever woman, and she already got back to me about my school site's clever information. So whoever that was that also had the clever question, she was great. She got back to me within like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I told you, she's the clever guru. She knows everything about clever.
She also doesn't sleep. So if you get an email from her ever at like 3 or 4 in the morning, that's
fine. So you can email her at any time now. We're joking, but no, she really will respond. And then she'll say, Sonia, why are you still up? And then I go, why are you still up? But no, I don't recommend that. We're being recorded. I do not recommend that. Work-life balance, very, very important, right? So good. Okay.
Am I recording?
So Lori, I don't have a question, but I just want to say thank you so much. That EdTech classroom that you created last spring helped me so much because I was fumbling. I had no clue what to do. And I still, to this day, I go in there and I look for things and find my answers. So thank you so much for creating that.
Oh, great. Yeah, we're going to have that for all of the paraprofessionals as well. So that's great to hear. Thank you, Denise.
Okay. And Jeanette just said, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to the training. I caught the last session and had to leave early, so I wanted to catch the Q&A. Awesome training. Amen to that. Okay, so, oh, I guess that was for the work-life balance. I was like, wait, what? So, yeah. So, okay, it's 3:00. We are done. No questions or dumb questions. Please ask anytime, okay? And
I
we'll
have
be talking about future trainings.